welcome to a classic staple of every con that has a guest ever. It's a Q&A.
Yay!
I'm guessing everybody pretty much knows how this works. Just like kids in school, we raise our hands when we have questions or want to say fun things, and I will try to get to as many different people as I possibly can so everybody has a chance to get their beans out, to get their questions out. We love to see it. So that I'm not presuming anything that any of you know who the hell I am. I'm Uptown Cosplay. I've been cosplaying since 2012. Not to call myself out here for being ancient, relatively. I go to cons mostly here in the Pacific Northwest. I make a lot of costumes. I'll buy costumes and alter them sometimes. I do my own wig styling, working on makeup artistry. Prop making's not necessarily my thing, but I have a good creative brain, so I can bounce ideas. I do a lot of cosplay lip syncs. I do a lot of in-character panels. I have a YouTube channel, social media, and all those things. So this is basically a Q&A where you can ask me pretty much anything and everything, as long as it's like PG-13 and below, because anything above that would be a different panel. But you can ask me anything, any burning questions that are on your mind, and I would be happy to answer them, bounce ideas, give you any tips, tricks, or just whatever fun facts you want to know. I'm here for it. And we've got 60 minutes and counting to do it. So, how are we feeling? Yes, question.
So, for my daughter here, she's getting into the whole cosplay universe, and we're having fun with it. What are some basics that she should know going into it, like picking a costume, like not going over the top at first and getting like discouraged because it's hard?
How to get the ball rolling.
Yeah, you know?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I think you started off in a great tangent there, which is to don't worry about going too crazy when you first start out, because everybody starts somewhere. Everyone's journey through cosplay as a form of self-expression is going to be different. And so there are some people that have been cosplaying for like only 2 years that their makeup is more like flawless looking than mine probably will ever look. And that's just kind of the way it is sometimes. But it's human nature to compare ourselves to other people, but as difficult as it is, try your best not to, and compare yourself to yourself is one of my biggest pieces of advice. You can rest assured that for cosplay as a hobby, I don't really think there are any hard and fast rules. It's about having fun. We're all just one big goofy family playing dress up at the end of the day, so like, who's really gonna get up in your business and tell you, well, that's wrong? And if they do, then you don't have to be their friend, and they can go bother somebody else. Yeah. They can go mind their beeswax. So don't feel too stressed out about like diving in and getting a super expensive wig for your first wig. You can use your normal hair. There's ways to use like temporary hair chalk colors if you want to do that first, if wig styling isn't something you want to get into right away. Or if it is, there's lots of more affordable options for wigs out there than there used to be. When I started cosplaying, back in the day there was nothing. You had like 2 places to get anything and everything, and that was about it. And if you didn't have that, you were screwed. But like, Amazon is just as good a place to get wigs as many other places now. A lot of different sellers will sell through there. There's a lot of smaller businesses that do wigs now, like the 5 Wits wigs. There's Arta Wigs, which is a great one. That's the one I'm wearing right now. I get a lot of my base wigs from there. Depending on the style, they can be a little bit pricier, but you get a lot of really good volume to work with. So while you're practicing styling techniques, I would go maybe start at a smaller price point just to like get the feel of things. And at the end of the day, YouTube is your best friend. There are so many tutorials on YouTube that are so helpful from people that started out just like you, who started from the ground up. Everybody starts at the bottom and then just kind of figures out where they want to be in the world. And you can literally look up anything. And there's probably at least 15 to 20 different videos telling you different ways of how to do that one thing. I have learned more from other cosplayers and YouTube tutorials than I have from like going to college for fashion design before I switched majors. Like there's so much out there. So explore your resources, and the community is also a fantastic resource. So if you make friends at cons, if you see somebody who cosplays something that really inspires you, that you really love, don't be afraid to pluck up some conversation. You can make friends if they're cosplaying from a series you like, you already have something in common. Super easy to talk to somebody about something at that point. And you can ask them for tips of like, hey, I love the way you styled this part of your wig, how'd you do that? Or like, hey, you added these like lights into your costume, like where did you get them from, how did you do that? Ask questions. People love to talk about things they're proud of. So you will 9 times out of 10 never be bothering somebody by asking them to talk about something they're passionate about. So that was a long-winded tangent, but hopefully that's like at least a handful of things to get you started.
Yeah, great.
Other questions? Yes.
If you wanted to use your real hair in a cosplay, do you have any helpful tips to keep it in place where you want it?
Got to be glued hairspray, baby.
Yes.
Got to be glued hairspray. They also have hair gel. It's the all famous stereotypical product placement can of hairspray you see with every cosplayer in their repertoire. It's big, yellow, and obnoxious looking. Looks probably like it's made of plastic, but it's metal. That's the one you want. There's also a tube of like gel that you can get to, which is literally just glue for your hair at this point. It does wash out, it just takes a little fixing, so don't be scared of it. But it's great for use on wigs. It's what I used all this morning for this. You can use it on your real hair. People who wear like mohawks for concerts and stuff, they use Got to Be and they swear by it. So if you use that, it's not going anywhere. It's like a best friend. It's gonna stand by you no matter what happens, rain or shine. So highly recommend it. Most like supermarkets and grocery stores will carry it, especially like beauty supply stores and stuff. So it's a lot of places, you can order it. Chef's kiss, love that stuff.
Thank you.
Yes?
Because every cosplayer has a miles long list of things they want to do, what is your process for like figuring out what you're actually gonna do next?
A train wreck. That's what it is. God, it feels kind of like people are asking me to choose my favorite child whenever they're like, so what's your next cosplay? And I'm like, I don't know, I love them all, what do I do? I don't know, it's very circumstantial for me. Sometimes it depends on what people I know are going to the next convention or event that I'm going to, and if I'm thinking of joining a panel situation, and they're like, oh man, we'd love to have you for this panel, but like we really need a character from XYZ series, and then it's like, well, this one was 3rd on the list, but I'm just gonna pick that up and move it over here to place number 1 and get started on that. It's just kind of that kind of thing where it depends on other people, it depends on what I'm into recently, or if I get a weird creative idea all of a sudden. Like, what was it? I was gonna save a particular cosplay on like my drastic list of things to do for probably way later, but then for an upcoming convention, I was bouncing ideas with somebody and they were like, oh, do you want to do this creative thing with like this piece of media, but it would be really good if it was with this series. How do you feel about doing this series now all of a sudden? And then I was like, okay, I'll move it up in the priorities, it's fine. I think it's a universal struggle that we all kind of deal with. Sometimes we just need to be convinced to make a decision because otherwise I can't. I'm a very indecisive person. I have trouble making choices on my own, sorry. Yes?
Have you ever had a character that you've wanted to portray that you thought was going to just turn out horrible and it came out like phenomenal?
This is me running through all my cosplays. As I have an aneurysm.
Don't die.
You know? I'm having trouble with the adjective choice because I don't usually call my own cosplays phenomenal, but if they reach a passing grade.
Right.
This one would be an example,
Right.
actually, because I styled this wig this morning. I was going to start last night, and I didn't because I chose sleep, and because my best friend / handler bullied me into sleeping instead.
Oh,
Thank you. So I had the brain cells to actually style anything. So I was like, this is probably going to turn out mediocre at
Yeah.
best. But I'm content with it. I think all things considered, it turned out kind of okay, so we'll take it. I think we can all relate. We've had the opposite effect sometimes where we're like, oh man, I'm so pumped for this cosplay, guys. It looks so good. This is gonna be great. And then you put it on at the con, you're like, okay, so that didn't go according to plan at all. This is not at all what I did those 2 makeup tests for. This looks nothing like that. How did this happen? We've all been there, but c'est la vie. You know, it doesn't work one time, you try again the next. That's just kind of the way it works. Perfection is fake. I'll just say that. Perfection does not exist. It is relative in every term, in every scale and spectrum you could possibly talk about. So there's no point striving for perfection. All you can do is strive for personal improvement. That's my wisdom. I drop a mic, but I would get kicked out. Yes?
What's it like being invited to cons? Like how did you get there and stuff?
It feels like an accident. I'm gonna be honest. I'm gonna be real. I don't know why I'm up here. It feels very cool. I've been invited to several cons. A lot of them are recurring ones here on the Pacific Northwest because it's where I'm the most known. The effect has not worn off at all, at least for me, where it always feels like a really nice privilege to be able to like come to a con, and they provide you a lot of things to come to a con. It makes doing what I love just that much easier and more accessible because like they'll pay for your hotel, they give you a badge, sometimes they'll comp you badges to give to like your closest friends or somebody that you want to have with you all weekend, like a handler, so that you don't do really terrible things to yourself by accident, having videographers to film your content for you so you don't have to desperately try to find like somebody you know or some random stranger that you hope has steady hands. It's nice, and it does give a really nice platform to give you visibility so that your voice can be heard by more people. It gives you a lot of exposure so people know your work and know what you do. And it also helps the convention a lot too, because especially for like a small con, like KuroNekoCon for example, especially now that they're back after being basically burned in the ashes from COVID for like 3 years, but they're back now. Huzzah, I'm so proud of them. I love this con, so I was really happy to come back to it. It helps the con a lot too, because for a lot of smaller conventions especially, if they can scrounge up enough to bring some cosplay guests over that people really like, it brings more people to their con, and then they can start to grow and actually come back with some momentum. So I'm always happy to be some kind of small part of that. I never know how big a part it really is, but I always hope it's at least helpful for them, as much fun as it is for me, because I just truly enjoy doing it. I love the opportunities to meet other cosplayers. Like, big common thing that happens when you guest at cons is like the first time you guest at a con, it's kind of like a rite of passage where they say you get to be a judge for the cosplay contest. That's kind of like the benchmark thing that cosplay guests get to do at least once. And you meet so many talented people. Are you kidding me? People are so talented, it's crazy. And getting to judge a cosplay contest, you get to like do pre-judging and look up close. You get to look at portfolios of their whole work in progress, the whole process of them making it. There's people who are like, yeah, so I hand stitched this for 200 hours. These are hand beaded with beads that I made myself. Even the undergarments are historically accurate that I hand sewed with like the specific boning and all this stuff. I'm just like, couldn't be me, but I respect you. It's so cool. It's very humbling to be in that position. It's hard work because it's a lot of time. You have to pre-prepare content if they want you to host panels and stuff sometimes. But for judging stuff, it's really hard work because you're judging these really talented people, and I think they all deserve so many gold stars. I wish I could just like give them so many stickers, all of them. But such is the way. But I truly just really enjoy doing it. I've gotten to go to conventions that I wouldn't have gone to before because of it. I went to Comicpalooza in Austin, Texas, because they offered to fly me out there, and they paid for my hotel. They had a shuttle that took me from the airport to the convention center, and it was such a cool experience to be in that environment that's so different from this one, but to still get a chance to meet with so many cool people. Very cool experience. As to how I got here, I think a big part of visibility in any community is about luck. Truly, so much of it is luck. If you go into this specifically to get visibility and you want popularity, you might. I'm a firm believer that it will not last because your audience will see through it. Eventually, it might take some time, but they will figure it out and they will move on. And then you won't feel fulfilled because you're not getting true joy out of it. So I do believe, go into it doing something you already love. Remember why you're doing it. Remember your roots. Don't go too far from your roots. It's important. Stay humble, but also stay happy, stay creative, and do what you love. And it will naturally attract people that also love that thing. And they might show up for one thing. For me, for example, a lot of people showed up to my social medias because of the fandom of Miraculous Ladybug. I'm very well known for my Chat Noir cosplay. I did it for years. So many people. I got really lucky because I happened to cosplay at a time when its popularity was very peak. And so the droves of people came in. I still get comments constantly of like, so when's the cat coming back? Do the nyam. But it's really cool too because people may come to you for one thing, but they will stay because they see how much you love what you're doing and they see the work that you put into what you do. And I think that's the true value, is the people that are there to support you, just chasing your bliss, in so many words. And with enough of that, you do get enough visibility so that your viewership is noticeable enough to where cons will look at that and say, I like their energy, I like their content, a lot of people also like their stuff. This could be a mutually beneficial partnership, and that's when you start to get reached out to. Also, make it easy to figure out how to reach out to you. Just as like a baseline, like if you have like an email address that you make your like business email that's really easy to find, put it in your Instagram bio or your YouTube contact spot, make it easy for them. If it is at all too much work, they will scoot right by you. They got too much to do to worry about that. It takes too much time. They get busy. I get it. It's hard running a con. I've never done it, but I see everything they do and it's crazy. But yeah, that's kind of my perspective on it, which other people get opportunities through different ways, but at least that's kind of how I tripped and fell face first into it. Questions?
Sorry.
Yes.
So for me, like, I'm a chef, and cooking is how I express myself.
Mm-hmm.
For cosplayers, they're expressing themselves as a cosplay. How do you deal with those times that it gets, stagnant, or you just feel like you're in the middle of things? Does that mean, like, how do you switch up your menu,
Like a cosplayer's version of writer's block?
Yeah,
Yeah. I think a couple things. I think there's an expectation, I think, in the cosplay community where if you're not constantly churning out new things, you're not relevant and you're not valid. And I don't subscribe to that mentality because it's exhausting. It is so tiring to do new things all the time because sometimes maybe you don't have the resources to do it, whether that be time, money, mental spoons. These are all resources. And it's okay to recycle old things that you love. So like taking it back to like a throwback costume that maybe it's not from the most recent popular anime. Maybe you cosplayed it like 4 or 5 years ago. Somebody's gonna be so happy that you cosplayed that at the con. Somebody's gonna come out of the woodworks and run screaming to you across the atrium somewhere and be like, oh my god, this is my favorite character. You look so good. Can I please get your picture? This is so cool. You're like the only character of this that I've seen at this con. Joy. Pure, unadulterated joy is what I feel when those moments happen. It's so pure and wholesome, and I love it. So don't be afraid to go back to old reliables, as some people might call them. Oldies but goodies. The OGs. The goats. Whatever the kids call them, I don't know. But I think that's important, but also it's okay to take breaks. At the end of the day, it's okay to get like Cosplayers Block. You're allowed because we're human and we get tired sometimes. And like a lot of people in the cosplay community are neurodivergent in some sense, and sometimes you just need a mental break to just step back and disconnect from something. Even if you're very passionate about it, taking a break from your art form does not make you less of an artist. Remember that. Don't let anybody tell you different, because social media will tell you different, because people are greedy. They are so greedy, and they will demand things from you a lot because they love to consume your media. They see your pictures, they get serotonin, they want more of it. Very flattering. It is a great honor. However, behind every cosplayer is a person, is a real human. And sometimes I forget to have breakfast and I don't drink enough water some days, and that's bad on me. But you think I have time to sit there and make like 15 Instagram posts? No. No, I have a real person job. So things like that. It comes down to being kind to yourself. And again, going back to remembering why you're doing what you love. And first and foremost, always do it for you and not for other people. So everybody comes out of writer's block for a cosplayer in different ways. Maybe you need a new show to get into. Ask your friends for recommendations. Jump on a new manga that you've not read yet or something. New webcomic, new movie, whatever it is you like to cosplay from. Play a new video game. See if that gives you the rush and gives you the little itch to cosplay again. That's what Genshin did for me. I got really tired of cosplay for a hot second, to be completely real and honest. I got so tired, man. Too much was going on in my real life, and I was like, I need to just breathe and take a step back, and I'm gonna make myself do that. And the internet's gonna get mad at me, but I have to, for me. And then I started playing this silly little game called Genshin Impact, and all of the characters are beautiful and obnoxious to wear in real life, but boy do I love them. And so that got me back into it. So you find something, you fixate on it for a little while, you turn out a few costumes here and there, and then see where else the waters take you. Yes?
So kind of like to add on to that, like Burnout, because I've started like making bracelets and stuff because I wanted to like sell something and make a little extra money on the side.
Valid. Get that
Because I'm a broke person and I need more money. Anyway, but like sometimes when I take a break, I feel like, ugh, I'm like wasting my time sometimes.
Oh,
I don't know.
I'm
have
like
this,
resting when I could be doing this other thing.
Yeah, I have like this voice in the
Yeah.
back of my head like, oh, you should be making stuff, you should be, turning out stuff, and because, you're going to wait till the last minute and then you're going to have to make everything. And
It's a hard balance, and I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to. I've heard that very same internal monologue from a lot of people that I know, and even from myself. And I think it's important to give yourself some grace. Give yourself a grace period where, like, hey, sometimes it's okay to just do nothing. Do nothing sometimes, it's healthy. It's a form of self-care. But if it starts to feel a little more self-destructive at some point, where you're just like sitting there, just like stewing in your own imposter syndrome, wondering if you could be doing something better with your time, then like maybe you can find other outlets and other avenues to feel productive, even if it's towards something different. So just redirect the brain to something else. Even if it feels silly, like start a new book. You can literally pick up one of those really fun adult coloring books or something, where it feels like you're making something and it's productive, but it's like, it's a mindless task. You can let your brain do basically nothing and go into low power mode while your hands are still doing something. I kind of do that sometimes with coursework, where anytime I have to do like hand sewing or something that's just kind of like tedious, but like it's fairly straightforward, I'll just put a show on in the background and then just like Netflix and vibe by myself while I'm doing my thing. It's nice. It's like a little therapeutic moment. So everyone's definition of that's going to be different, but I definitely encourage people to find multiple outlets where they can feel like they're going towards something while they're in rest mode. I think it's important. Any other hands? Yes, hello.
For like people people who are getting very new at cosplaying and have like mostly bought most of their cosplays, do you have any advice for like where to start in terms of sewing your own?
Sewing your own, yes. Commercial patterns are your friend. It's okay to use them. Okay, brief context and backstory. Most of my sewing knowledge I actually learned through my college career, not through the fashion design program, which maybe this says more about the college than the actual thing. By working in theater costume shops. Dude, they slap. They're gonna teach you so many valuable skills. I learned the very fine art of making something look gorgeous on the outside and it looks awful on the inside, and no one cares because nobody's gonna see it. So valuable. So many tips and tricks and shortcuts. And what we used to do a lot for sewing in the costume shop is we take commercial patterns and you mix and match them. I do it all the time. Literally, I very rarely pattern things on my own. I'll drape a thing every once in a while if I'm desperate and I have to, and like my reliable makers of patterns aren't doing it for me, but like there might be a little bit of fudging you have to do, but when you're first getting started, fudging is so okay. You're probably not going to jump headlong into the deep end of the Olympic swimming pool of like, I'm going to join World Cosplay Summit, and I sound nothing. You don't have to do that. It's the joy of making something yourself and being able to show off and like have that pride in it without, you don't need the extra pressure. Like you can if you want, but like, I'm not gonna make you do that because I wouldn't do it. Mix and match your patterns, it's great. Your sleeve might not perfectly match up with your arm's eye of your bodice piece, but you know what? That's what ease and a little bit of gathering is for. Also, YouTube's your best friend. As I previously talked about for another question, YouTube is so helpful. It's so helpful. You can look up anything. There's like 15 tutorials on how to do that one thing different ways. Love it. Etsy is also kind of popping off right now with patterns because a lot of cosplayers use it. They'll make patterns, whether it's for like material, clothing, costume items, or even armor patterns. You can buy those things for so cheap on Etsy. People could charge way more than they do for them, and they don't, and it's wild to me. Cosplayers, get that bread, it's okay. Be proud of yourselves, you're allowed. But Etsy's great for it. You can just buy the download the pattern, and then just print it out. And then you tape your bits and bobs together, and boom, you're done. You can also trace things you already own. If you've got a t-shirt that fits really well and you're trying to make a sleeveless shirt from it that also fits the same way, take that sucker and lay it on your fabric and trace around it. Leave seam allowance. Stinkies, leave your seam allowance, don't forget it. I've done it so many times, so don't do as I say, not as I do. Lay that down, trace it out, cut that thing out in 2 pieces, put your right sides together and stitch it. Boom, you got a shirt. Dunzo. There you go. Lots of different things. The community is a fantastic resource as always, so if you ever have questions of like, hey, this is the character I'm making, this is kind of what I'm thinking. Huh?
Anyone has any tips on how to make Dark Magician Girl at all years?
Yeah, and listen, you can literally go and search Dark Magician Girl cosplay on so many social medias, and you're going to see fantastic examples, and guess what? A lot of people's DMs are open. Go ask, don't be afraid. Hop in. People love to talk about things that they've made. Go in and be like, hey, your cosplay absolutely slaps, my guy. I'm kind of new at this, but like, where do I start? Thanks, babe. You're great. Keep doing what you do. It's not easy. So there's some things to get the ball rolling. Yes?
When something doesn't go the way you want with like wigs or cosplay or whatever it is, how do you best deal with like the disappointment of that and not letting it affect your enjoyment of the character you're cosplaying?
That's a good question. I would say it's important to, a lot of this loops back to like being a nice person to yourself, because a lot of us are mean to ourselves and we are all our own worst self-critics. Your love of the thing is what inspired you to start, right? you wouldn't be doing this if you didn't love said character, like Rapunzel, for example. You love Rapunzel. She's beautiful, she's gorgeous. You looked at her and said, I love you and I want to be that. I want to be that girl. She cool. I like her and her big hair. I can make that big hair, or somebody else can make it for me and I can pay them for it. Something, yeah. And if you're getting excited, you get into the process of it, you're going through your motions. If something goes wrong, might depend how devastating it is, let's be fair, but take a beat, walk away from it. Break up with it. You both take a second to think about what you both did. And then you come back to it like adults. You talk about it calmly and you assess the situation. And you come together with both sides of your stories and you really talk it out. And a lot of times you don't have to start from scratch. Sometimes it's an opportunity, as Bob Ross would say, to make a happy little mistake. A little happy little accident, as they say. Maybe it's an opportunity to use a creative liberty where, sorry, I'm staring at your costume to give like an idea of this. You're so pretty. Let's say, oh, if you only had so much fabric and your sheer like sleeve that comes down, it's too short. Or like, oh God, you just ripped right through with your sequin and there's like a whole thing down it. And you're like, oh God, I can't go back from this. Maybe you can. Maybe it's not as screen accurate, but maybe to cover up the rip, you start stitching little ribbons down it. Those like continue the pattern. Maybe you switch out that fabric for one that's like a different print. It's got like a subtle brocade or something on it. Adds more texture. And then you go, wait, texture's cool. What if I added more texture to the skirt too? And then you just go down that rabbit hole of a spiral and suddenly it's Rapunzel, but it's your Rapunzel. Which every cosplay you do is gonna have your stamp on it, which is why it's really hard to compare yourself to other people sometimes because everybody's gonna approach things really differently, which is okay and encouraged, honestly. But you can try to take those mistakes and just kind of like spin them into something that works for you. You can go cry to a friend. It's also valid, and sometimes your friends can be like, hey, wake up, you're fine. Hey, beautiful, stop it. Let's look at this together. Let's bounce some ideas. We can get through this together. And then they can help you. Because sometimes when we reach a little conundrum, brain no work anymore, and brain becomes sad and no want do. But sometimes friends look at it and go, okay, you're being really dramatic, you can literally just do this, and you're like, oh, yeah, you're right, thanks, bestie. So, it's easier said than done, as it always is, but I do think that there's a way back from whatever hole you feel like you've dug yourself with whatever mistakes may end up coming up, because mistakes are inevitable. What matters is how we respond to them and how we learn from them. When I first styled my Death the Kid wig, I was delirious with a fever, and I ended up botching those bangs so bad, and right in the center.
Oh no.
Because he's got those classic anime boy bangs where there's like the piece that comes down in the middle and then the ones on the other side. A whole section in the middle is just blunt cut, way too short, and I just looked at it and I was like, I'm not allowed to hold scissors ever again when I say. So I learned from that, and we don't do that anymore. And my solution was to take the botched piece of hair and hide it inside the hair spike. So it's fine, and you never know that there's a whole like 2-inch shorter piece of hair in there somewhere. So we came back from it, but we did have a little bit of a meltdown first, and sometimes that's allowed. Yeah. Yes, question.
I'm curious about like doing photo shoots by yourself. Do you ever like tackle that?
I avoid it at all costs, to be honest. I did it once, all of one time, and it was fueled by sheer stress. Funnily enough, for that same convention in Austin, Texas, Comic Palooza, they informed me later than I would have liked that I was gonna have a table at this con, and they were like, you can sell things if you like, and I was like, I've never done this before in my life. How does one do that exactly? And so I was like, okay, cosplay prints, that's what people do. People like cosplay prints. I look at my photos and I go, all of these are characters that people at a Comic-Con are probably not going to know what that is. And this will do nothing for me. I will be bringing them garbage, is what that means. So I said the closest thing that a person at a comic convention is going to understand at the time that I was doing this was My Hero Academia. I was like, Comic-Con people know my hero, for the most part. So I got in my Aizawa cosplay, and I stood on the couch in my living room with my janky little tripod and my silly little camera, and the backdrop from Wish that was tacked up on the backdrop. Am I painting the image? Is this vivid enough for you? Perfect. If there were chairs here, I could stand on them for effect. I'm up on my couch and I'm doing really dramatic poses and being really groovy and getting into the whole vibe. This probably looks so stupid as Chong-Yoon, stupid dumb baby boy. And doing my thing, and I took some photos and they were bad. They were bad. But that's what Photoshop's for, baby! So we fixed them. It was really bad, dark living room apartment lighting, and so I took that and I ran with it, and I added fun colors on the sides to make it look more LED in the back alley of a city kind of energy, and you'd never know. So if you don't have Photoshop, find a friend that does. It's quite helpful. Self-photography is very hard. I like working with photographers personally. I like being able to be there and do what I think I know looks good, and then have somebody there going, okay, but like, can you turn your shoulders this way, like, and your hips this way, and move this knee back, and then straighten this leg, and then turn your chin up a little? Perfect. Does it hurt? You're doing it right. Okay, cool. I like having somebody to like tell me how to like tweak things to bring out the best version of the end product. I also just think it's fun to collaborate with people because they're going to bring ideas that I didn't think of, and I'm going to bring ideas that they didn't know. It's more fun for me.
Leading off that if I can, I know like some people get access to like some sets, like for example, like a schoolroom, classroom.
Yeah.
How?
Okay, so I've actually really wanted to do one of these things myself. I've done a little bit of research, but you could certainly probably do more, likely on YouTube. There are some conventions that will literally build these things out for you. There was one that used to be around here in the Pacific Northwest, like AkiCon, I think, that used to have little like mini sets. There was like,
that was so cool.
Yeah, I never got a chance to go, and I'm sad about it. But they had like a little schoolroom, and they had like another little room, another little themes that you could just go into and like have your little moment. Quite fun. There are photo studio places that you can rent out that also do that. Some people will look on Airbnb for really cool houses and like apartments that you can just rent for one night, and you just show up and you take cool photos that match the universe and the character or the alternate universe that you're cosplaying from, and then you put things back the way you found them so nobody gets mad at you, and so you're being respectful, and then you leave, and then you have cool photos, which is really fun. So there's that as an option. There's also like, I don't remember what the website is, to be honest. I need to find it again. Through spiraling in the internet, I found this one website where you can literally search for different like aesthetics or different like scenarios, and it will bring you like actual like studios that have that and that fit that bill that you're looking for, and it'll give you the rate and it'll show you available dates so you can book them, and you can just do that. I've never done it, and I really wanted to. A lot of them are very expensive, but for the right photo shoot, it might be worth it. Might be worth it. There's options. Or you can go on weird little location scouting scavenger hunts like people do sometimes, where you're like,
I really want to do a photo shoot for something really post-apocalyptic. Let's go find a weird abandoned field somewhere with some junk in it and a shipping container for flavor.
And you can go around looking for those things, and you can Google Map some stuff, and you can ask around with friends if there's like, maybe you can go keep out at a friend's house, and then you have a photo shoot day where you both maybe don't even cosplay from the same thing, but it works for the same aesthetic. And then you go take pictures of each other, and it's a fun little day. Bring a picnic, make it fun and queer. Who knows? There's ways to go about it. I love it. I need to do more of it, honestly. It's a joke amongst me and most of my friend groups where we'll be minding our own business somewhere. We're driving, and I turn my head, and I look at something, and I'm like, see that really cool abandoned barn? That's so neat. Photo shoot? And that's just the joke, where like, anytime you see anything remotely cool and interesting in the outside world, you're just like, I bet I can do a photo shoot there. I never do, but the thought's there. So, there's that. Questions? Yes.
Biggest con you ever been to?
Biggest con? KatsuCon. KatsuCon's a lot, y'all. In like mostly a good way. I've had a lot of really fun, good memories and experiences at KatsuCon, but it do feel like a can of sardines sometimes, I'm gonna be real. The venue is lovely. I love it. It's called the Gaylord, so I already really like it. But the atrium in there is beautiful. You can find, they have like a cute little like downtown village looking setup in there with like cute little shops and overpriced food. But you can take cool pictures, and there's like tropical plants, and there's a water feature, and it's delightful.
Where is it?
It's beautiful. Where is it? Washington, D.C.?
Washington, D.C.
Yes, Washington, D.C. So quite the flights to get out there, but it was worth it. I've been twice now, so I must have liked it enough to go back. So there's that. But that one was definitely the biggest. Second place probably being SoccerCon here in the Pacific Northwest, because that one's also getting crazy busy. Questions? Thoughts? Burning ruminations of the brain. Yes.
So you judge these events fairly often in different costumes. When have you ever had that moment where you're like, yeah, this is a flaw in the costume, but it makes the costume? You know, like somebody comes in and they're like, oh man, I tore this and I fixed it, and it just looks phenomenal.
Yes. Here's the thing, guys. Pro tip for someone who's judged a few cosplay contests. And this goes for any kind of judging scenario. It's not just cosplay related. If you messed up, don't talk about it. Don't say it. Pretend it didn't happen. If someone asks you about it, you can talk about it. Don't unprompted just start lamenting about how you really wanted it to come out this way, but then this, that, and the other thing happened, and it's a travesty, and you're devastated. It throws off the whole vibe. The judges probably didn't even notice until you pointed it out, and now they're probably going to critique you on it. Because we're probably still flabbergasted at your whole ensemble, and we haven't even looked at like the itty bitty details yet. So keep it to yourself. Talk about the things you're proud of. Talk about the time that went into it and the materials you used. And because sometimes it has happened before where somebody comes up and they start doing that, where they start talking about the thing that they messed up on that they wish could have gone a different way. I literally had to shush somebody at one point because they wouldn't stop, and I started to feel bad for them because they truly looked so heartbroken over this project, and I was like, honey, you showed up. You came all the way here, and you've spent probably 5 hours getting into this costume, and you look stunning. You don't have to be sad. You made it this far, and that is already something to be so proud of. We're sitting here just gobsmacked at how gorgeous you look. Let us enjoy it with you. We're sitting here in front of your like 17-page portfolio of this costume and all of its historical accuracies and the hand sewing that you put in. I went off on that tangent because I remember this costume. It was beautiful. And I just had to like take a deep breath and start over and talk about what you love. That's what we want to hear from you. If we got questions about like a hem that didn't get finished, here's the thing, we're probably not actually going to even ask you. We take notice of it and look at the rest of the hem and go, this looks like an inconsistency, it's human error, that's okay, it's part of the historical accuracy, honestly, and it's fine. And then we move on to judging other things about it. So, truly, I think it sometimes adds a lot of character and a lot of quirk, and sometimes just lends itself to that energy that you're bringing with that costume. Like, there's somebody who came to a cosplay contest cosplaying as The Witcher. Handmade everything. Ventilated their own wig.
What?
Their undergarments were handmade.
Oh my god.
Historical accuracies, and it was beautiful. And there were some little things that were a little bit like just barely off, not quite perfect. Is your blacksmith gonna be perfect in the middle of The Witcher? No, you're fighting dragons, it's fine. It's okay. And I loved it because it almost like, I told the cosplayer, I was like, no, literally next time if you ever compete with this again, just say it's battle damage. And we'll buy it. Pro tip, just say it's battle damage, say you did it for effect, you did it for flavor. It's probably fine. So, talk about what you love. We like drowning in the positives with you. Question, yes.
If you had unlimited time and money, is there a dream cosplay you would pursue?
See, this goes back to choosing my favorite child.
Okay, one or two.
Okay. Heck. Okay. This is so obscure, and most of you probably will not really know what this is. And it's so out of pocket. Do y'all remember? So, how many of you are familiar with the Mega Man franchise? Okay, a few hands, a non-committal hand, that's fine, that's valid, it's about what I expected. For a hot second on Kids WB, there was a show called Mega Man NT Warrior. Sounds about right. I got dead stares across I get it, same. It was a classic of its time in the way that it was a little bad. The dub was just okay because we were still learning how to be actors with just your voice. We were still figuring that part out. But there is a character, the main character in that show, from a very specific part of the show, where there's like a transformation sequence. It's not Magical Boys, but it kind of feels like that, which feels right. I don't know, seems kind of fun. I really want to do something from that show, but it requires like, it would have to be like full bodysuit, which obviously I don't have a problem with that. Half of my cosplays are bodysuits. But it has like armor pieces, there would probably be LED lights, there's a whole helmet to build with like wig hair just coming out the back of it. I don't know. It would be very cool and make childhood me very happy, even if like all of 2 people knew what I was. And that's fine. It would be a truly self-indulgent project. I would love that. Maybe you have time for 1 or 2 more questions? Yes.
What advice would you have for if you ever get criticisms, or the one I find more harder to deal with, compliments? Like, you know, someone says you've got a flawless costume, and you're like, that? No, that's not.
Yeah, it's a fine line. So, my thing on critiques is, if it's not something a cosplayer can fix in 5 minutes, don't bring it up. Because they probably didn't ask you, to be real. If they're asking for critiques, if they're like, I'm thinking about remaking some pieces of this costume, like, your cosplay is really cool and you seem to know what you're doing, like, what would you do differently? That's different. You can kind of go in and like bounce some ideas from a positive place. But don't give unwarranted criticisms and critiques. Most people don't want it. And so if you receive something like that, it's probably somebody coming at you from the community with the wrong energy out the gate, and their opinion probably doesn't super matter at the end of the day. So it's hard, but you have to take this moment of Am I having fun? Yes. That's what matters. I'm proud of what I did, even if I know it's not perfect, because perfection is fake, as we've discussed. This person who's talking at me seems like they're not having fun. I think I'm doing this right. And then you say, well, thanks for your opinion. I'm good actually, but I'll take it under advisement. Have a good day. Peace. And you walk away. Compliments can be hard to deal with, for sure. Especially when somebody's coming at you like, oh my God, you're like canon. You're like the canon of this character. You're not gonna perfect you step right out of the screen. Oh my God, it's like you're my actual boyfriend. Oh my God. Like at that point, there's a couple things maybe a little questionable about that, but I try to look at it from they're coming at me with from a place of joy and passion. They're very passionate about this character. And while I may not 100% subscribe to like everything coming out of their mouth that's like a compliment, it's coming from a place of wanting to compliment me. To a point, I'll humor it and say like, I really appreciate where you're coming from, and I love that you love this character so much, because I obviously like this character too, because I'm cosplaying them. So we agree on that much, and that's pretty cool. Best advice is to just say thank you. Even if you don't believe it, if you would love to just dive in and start nitpicking everything about this costume that you're wearing, and you're like, no, see, what you didn't see here is, where I touched this, it's really not that great. You can see the stitching on the underside. Instead of doing that, because they're already flabbergasted by what you're wearing and they're loving it. So you can just say, thank you. I'll probably keep making adjustments to this as I go, because there's like things I still want to improve on, but what you're saying means a lot. And oftentimes that's enough. I've had people compliment me in ways that are truly uncomfortable, which I don't love. When it stops being about the character, or on the flip side, suddenly I start to feel like maybe they're not looking at me like a person, and maybe they're just trying to talk at the character. Both not super great. So I will leave you all with the wisdom of every cosplayer, no matter if you are seeing them at a con in the flesh in front of you, or on social media, on an Instagram post, or on Twitter, or in a YouTube video doing a skit, or a fun, funky little hee-hee ha-ha poo-poo. We're all people, and we are way more similar to you than you might believe. And so think about what you're posting in a comment or what you're saying to somebody in a real life scenario. Take the extra 5 seconds to do a self-check and say, would I want to hear this? If somebody that I didn't know, a stranger, came up to me out of my peripherals and said this thing to me, would I feel good afterwards? If the answer is, or anything more negative than that, take a beat and edit, reassess, say something else, it's probably not a good idea. But if you think about it and say, yeah, I think I would love if somebody recognized my hard work this way. I want to make sure I'm recognizing someone else's hard work too, so that they feel good. Then it probably is a pretty good way to pay someone a respectful comment. And then, by all means, share the positivity, share the love, because we love to foster that energy here in the community. We all work very hard at what we do, no matter our skill level, no matter how long we've been doing this. And so having even just that one extra person at con be like, just in passing, being like, hey, I love your cosplay. That's one of my favorite characters. Or even if there's the people that maybe you don't love a character, but someone's cosplaying it so well, even just in passing, you're like, hey, you're cosplaying that character super well. And just leave it at that. Day made. You just made someone's day. And even if they're hiding behind a face mask, you can see the smiles. Well, they be smiling. They be feeling pretty good about it. So, spread the love. Be respectful, be kind to others, but also be kind to yourself, because we are all our own worst self-critics, and we do beat ourselves up a lot over things that probably other people would look at and say, that's amazing.
Thanks for coming to McKinney. I would be happy to stand outside the room and chit chat with anybody who would like to. I have some downtime. I also have business cards up here for anybody who maybe doesn't know me or just wants one as a souvenir. I don't have a ton, but I have some. So you can have one if you'd like. I'm going to collect my things and then we can move out yonder so that whatever panel is after me has free access.